Hola, this is the Forbes Books Podcast. I'm Joe Pardavila, and I was reading a piece on the website for Webster's dictionary that was titled, Stay in Your Lane, A History. They define stay in your lane as a term of admonishment or advice against those who express thoughts or opinions on a subject about which they are viewed as having insufficient knowledge or ability. But sometimes we can't just stay in our lane. We have to get out of our lane. And my guest today spent 20 years as a retail professional, but was inspired to create a media company that could deliver business information and expertise in a clear, digestible way. Her name is Hillary Mendes, and she's the founder and CEO of ROI TV, which just launched this week. Hey, Hillary, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent, and I guess the big question is, what's it like starting a media company? I mean, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. It's definitely a challenge. My career is in retail buying, so media is not my forte, or was not my forte, let's say that.
Yeah.
But I think it's been really exciting to learn as I go and pull this content together for our listeners.
That's great. And you mentioned it there, the fact that your experience is mostly in retail. And I guess I'll ask you sort of like a psychological question. I know when I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs who jump into a different field than they're either trained in or have some sort of experience in, the imposter syndrome kind of kicks in a little bit. Be like, am I the right person to do this kind of thing? Have you felt that at all over the past year as you've been working on this launch?
Absolutely. I think that imposter syndrome is real. It definitely creeps up occasionally when you wonder, am I the right person to do this? Can I make this actually happen? Is my idea good enough? But I think coming back to the reason why I wanted to start this channel and start this company, bringing financial literacy and financial topics in an easy, digestible way to viewers is, it always comes back to the mission and understanding that the vision is there, the mission is there, and the challenges and obstacles that come your way in order to get that done are just that. They're obstacles to push through or push past, and there's been a lot of learning along the way, but I think that that's also been the fun part of being an entrepreneur and starting this company.
So let's talk about this career pivot that we've sort of alluded to. Worked in retail for many, many years. Why does ROI TV need to exist?
Well, I've been surrounded by financial advice. My husband is a financial advisor. I have friends who are in the industry as well. But, at work during lunch breaks or out to dinner or catch-ups with other friends, there's always, the same financial questions came up. A lot of people don't know, myself included, some of the answers to these financial topics like real estate or mortgages or how to pay for college for your kids eventually. How do you save for retirement? What is the best way to do that? All these different facets that you don't learn about. And in order to learn about them, you can Google, you can go down that rabbit hole, but it takes time and effort, and people are busy these days, and myself included. I'm also a mother and have a career that's outside of this. And so it's wading through all of the searches that come up and making sure that the information is credible. It just felt like and knowing that financial health and financial literacy, there's just so much to it. There's so many different facets. So wanted to bring all of that information in a clear, easy, digestible way to people who are having these questions. I asked my husband to make a show because I feel like he's very versed on this and makes it easy to understand these things, and he just said it was too much work. So I went down the rabbit hole and found some great content creators already and worked to bring them together in a place where it's kind of a one-stop shop for you to learn about all these different financial topics.
And so I'm asking you sort of like a matrixy question. Neo was the one. Why are you the one to bring ROI TV to life?
I think I'm the one because I'm not in the financial industry. I think when you're your average consumer and I have, a base knowledge, but I have a little bit more knowledge than some of my friends, some of my colleagues, because I'm surrounded by people who are in the industry, and I hear them talk to each other, and they're talking about all the things that go into a financial plan and having a healthy financial baseline. And I'm asking the questions that I think most people want to ask. And so by bringing it to a level that's easy for most people to understand, I think that's why I'm the one, because I think that there's this base level that we kind of all need to get to in order to learn more.
Yeah, well, that's great. And so now that you've been doing this, when did the idea for ROI TV come to your brain, and how long did it take to ideate and then finally execute it and deliver it this week?
I've been working on it for about a year. Really wholeheartedly started it in January, kind of going whole hog and starting to...
Wait a minute. You launched a media company in a year?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Hard work, perseverance, a lot of extra time on nights and weekends, and by asking the right people the right questions. I think that one of the things that early on was able to have a conversation with John Klein from CNN and give him, the idea that for ROI TV, and his advice was just start. And so that's what we did. And I think that there's always that quote that has been near and dear to me forever is, it always seems impossible until it's done. And so just starting and putting one foot in front of the other and figuring out how to push through the different obstacles and learn a completely different industry and business has been a challenge. But I think that has been also the fun part is problem solving your way through all these different.
You're probably well aware of what's going on with the Aussie media drama that's been playing out in the media
yes.
over the last couple of weeks, thanks to the New York Times reporting. And for folks who don't know, I don't want to get too into it, but I just want to know how this is going to affect you. So basically, Aussie Media was this big media company that produced videos online for TV shows, but I guess they did a little fibbing along the way. They increased some of their numbers by paying for views and such, and lying about who was investing in the company. So I don't want to get into that with you, and I don't expect you to react to that, but how do you think something like that will affect your company going forward? Because now it seems like more folks are going to be a little more careful and a little more introspective when it comes to investing in a media company. Do you think that may have some sort of short-term impact on you guys?
I don't think so. I mean, yes, I think whatever goes on in the macro environment will always affect businesses like mine, but I think we're not looking for investment right now. What we are looking for is to be a credible space in the media landscape. So I think that that's where there might be a little bit of pushback. But one of the things that we're super proud of is that our creators are all licensed professionals. So they have, not only do we think that they're creating great content and it's very digestible and easy to understand, but also they have a regulatory body behind them to make sure that the advice that they are giving out is credible and reliable. So it's kind of a twofold situation where that's the space that we want to be in, is making sure that we are a credible place for people to come get knowledge.
Okay. And so we've talked about ROI TV in sort of like a big picture point of view, but how does it work? How do people access it? How can people watch ROI TV?
Yeah, so we are available on connected TV through Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV by downloading the free ROI TV app. We'll also be available as of 10/15 on the App Store, whether it's iOS or Android, by downloading the free ROI TV app. And we're also available on ROITV.com in case you do have neither connected TV nor a phone.
And I think a lot of people in business have one of those things. I would assume at this point in our lives. I'm curious because Bill Gates many years ago coined the phrase "content is king," and you see these content companies like Netflix has. I don't even know how many shows they have on or movies. It's a gazillion, and they're a big conglomerate that is able to just keep pumping money into content. So how do you, as a startup, essentially, continue to create content and keep it fresh to have people coming back for more?
We totally agree with that mantra too. Content is king. So we're pacing out the amount of content that we are putting out instead of putting it out to binge like Netflix does, which is great. But one of the reasons that we have gone on connected TV is that, it is the future of television. And we want to give people the opportunity to watch the video on demand because that is our target audience. Like people who are busy, they have families, they have lives, they have businesses they're running of their own, or they just have a career that's super taxing. So to be able to watch the content when they want to has been one of the main pushes for us. But going back to that, content is king. So making sure that the content we're putting out is the right content and putting it out on a weekly basis, new shows every day, so that there's always a reason to come back and see and learn more.
And talk to me about, in terms of content and making it consumable for people who don't have an MBA from Columbia. The stickiness of really good business content is being able to speak at a high level like you went to Columbia Business School or Harvard Business School, but at the same time, make it consumable for folks who didn't go to either of those schools. So how do you toe that line?
Yeah, I think that is one of the main things that we're looking for when we are bringing on new content creators and creating content of our own, is having that voice that breaks down those hard to understand financial topics, whether it's, getting a mortgage, what goes into that. There's so many different facets on finding the right mortgage lender or refinancing your home, talking about financial planning and wills versus trusts. A lot of these things that, to your point, not the average person knows, or the average person thinks that is just for rich people. And really anybody can benefit from this information. Making sure that those creators have education first as their point of view. That's been our biggest push and our biggest drive in making sure that that's the content we're providing for people.
Cool. And to pull another businessy type quote, and I'm not sure this has been attributed to a lot of people, but never be the smartest person in the room, because they say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So how important has it been for you to surround yourself with folks who know about either the business-scape or the media-scape, since you didn't have that sort of upbringing or experience in it? Talk to me about how you developed that team.
Yeah, I think that has been super important. I'm definitely not the smartest person in most of the rooms that I walk into.
Oh, come on, Hillary. Give yourself some credit.
Or at least I'm not the most knowledgeable.
Okay.
There's one of my high school teachers always said, I am the most knowledgeable person in the room, but I'm not necessarily the smartest person.
I like that.
In this
Okay.
room.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting thing to tell teenagers, right? But I think that not being the most knowledgeable, you are more open to when people have suggestions and when you do need to pivot. We also had a call with Tom Sosoff of Tasty Trades early on, and he also had just some, pitched him the idea because we were really interested in bringing his content onto the channel because they do a really good job of educating on how to trade options. And he thought the idea was great, but he had some really poignant questions to ask because he was the smartest man in that room, and it was really helped me refine the vision and pivot, and also helped me realize that I was a little bit farther behind than I needed to be at that point in order to launch. And I think that was super helpful because I was able to take a step back, really listen to his advice because he'd been through this before, and then really power into some of the minute things that he had asked. And, we're really excited because we do have Tasty Trades as part of our content. And I think that this goes back to the conversation about content is king. And it's the key thing as part of ROI TV because they talk about and they teach about trading options. And you're hearing about options trading, whether you're watching Bloomberg or CNBC or reading in the Wall Street Journal or these financial influencers talk about trading options. And they talk about doing it, but they don't educate on how and why and teach how to actually do it and what to look for. And that is what Tasty Trades is bringing to ROI TV, is that actual teaching of how to do this. And I think that that's the difference between our content and some of the other media companies out there.
And digging into your content a little bit, I've noticed at roitv.com that you have things sort of set up in handy dandy buckets. So you've got your money, your house, your estate, your investment, your elder care, your business. Without having to do a deep dive in each of those, talk to me about the importance of breaking it down in those sort of segmentations.
Well, I think when you are looking for financial answers, you're looking for something within a bucket, and it's helpful to kind of think about things all together within that bucket instead of having a litany of shows that kind of go one into another. Being able to segment and really hone in on a topic is just a more helpful way for people to learn and go a little bit deeper on a subject that they do need more education on.
And talk to me about your talent, because obviously, we talk about the importance of content, and you can't make content without talent. So how did you find the talent that you have associated with ROI TV, and who are some of these people?
Yeah, so we went deep down the rabbit hole and dived into different podcasts and YouTubes and webinars to find out who is doing this already. Because to your point, I'm not the most knowledgeable on this. So we want
Wait, I didn't say that. Come on.
To my point earlier.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not the most knowledgeable.
Thank you.
But I think that that's also the important part, is finding these content creators who are already doing it and doing it well, and speaking to somebody who doesn't have any knowledge on the topic. So really being able to break down these complex financial issues and teach how to get the information you need to feel empowered to make the right financial decisions. So, scoured and spent lots and lots of time listening to podcasts and looking at YouTube videos and figuring out, talking to friends who are doing the same thing. Oh, who do you like? Who do you listen to? Who do you follow? And why? Why do you like the content that they are providing? And really, kind of vetted people that way. And we wanted the creators to not be salesy, but rather people who are creating this content to educate people on the depth and the breadth of financial topics. And I go back to the fact that all of our content creators are licensed professionals, because that provides this extra level of credibility to them, knowing that they have their own businesses and they're creating this content for people to consume so that they can be educated. So it's not an easy sale for them. It's not short-term gains. It's about the long-term help that they're providing to their viewers.
You talked about falling down that rabbit hole of finding information, looking for talent. Talk to me about, in terms of the competition, as you probably discovered as you fell down the rabbit hole, Alice in Wonderland. You must have seen a lot of this competition that kind of played out. Sort of, you're basically doing market research as you were talent hunting. So how difficult does that look? How does that future look like in terms of competing with these other folks that have already been in the space for a little bit?
I think that's a really great question. There are channels and there's lots of media companies that focus on business news. They focus on the stock market, but they aren't focusing on the wider breadth and depth that is personal finance. And that's where we feel like our niche is. And there are certainly creators who are out there giving financial advice. But again, we wanted to pull together all these content creators that were in one place. So it's a curated information to help you figure out your financial life. There's certainly lots of people who have been in the space for a long period of time. But again, there might be more on the short-term gain versus this long-term longevity of educating people on financial topics. We've all seen the rise of the financial influencer, and it's great. They do provide some great content and great advice on getting out of debt and making sure that you do have savings as well as some stock tips. But we wanted creators that were really more focused on education and providing people with the knowledge so that they feel empowered to make the right financial decisions.
It's funny. I was watching Bill Maher the other night, and he was talking about the fact that America has become a content creation machine, whereas basically those are careers now. Like, whereas, going back to the turn of the century, it was the Industrial Revolution, and people were making things. Now we're making content. Is that something that you worry about in the back of your mind? Is like, is there too much content out there? Or maybe it's more of like, how do I separate my content from the rest? Because eventually we're probably going to come to this tipping point where there's just way too much out there. And that, it's sort of like with all these streaming channels. There's so many streaming channels. Some of them are bound to just disappear one of these days. So which do you think about the most? Like, is there too much, or how do I separate myself from the rest?
I think we are more focused on how do we separate ourselves from the rest. I think that there's always going to be questions about different financial topics that people have. So curating the content that's out there and pulling that together so people can find it in an easy way is really what our push is. And so I don't think that it's about that there's going to be too much, because there are more movies out there. There's more TV shows. There's more content creators on Instagram, and more everybody's a photographer these days, but it still doesn't stop everyone from taking pictures on their own phone.
And so the name of the network and media company is ROI TV. So let's be crass and talk about money. What's your return on investment looking like? How did you get this off the ground? Did you have investors? Was this all self-funded? How did you make this a reality?
This is all self-funded. So we do not have investors, and we are bootstrapping this from the get-go.
And I'm not going to ask you how much, but this seems like an expensive proposition. Is it? Am I correct in assuming that?
It is certainly not cheap. But I think, when you have an idea, you want to see it to fruition. And once we were starting and getting things going, you do see the return on bringing in the right people to help you along this journey. So whether it's the content creators, or whether it's our producer who's helping us create our own content, whether it's our host, Kristen, or Natalie, who's helping us with all of our PR and media, you see the return on bringing the right people in to help make this idea and help make this a reality.
And you said you've been working on this for about a year. You've launched this week. What's launch week been like? Is it, I've never given birth to a child, but does it feel like that? Does it feel like childbirth, like you're giving birth to something and presenting it to the world?
Yeah, it does kind of in a way. I have given birth to a child.
Okay, so you have a reference point. Great.
Similar.
Okay, good.
I do have a reference point to that. There is kind of this long incubation period where you're working on all the things behind the scenes. And then to show it to the world, and we've been able to, in beta testing, give a few previews to our friends and family, get some feedback on things prior to launch. But definitely launch week has felt like giving birth in a sense, and a very proud moment in the fact that it's now available to anybody who wants to consume it, anybody who's going through a life change and feels like they don't necessarily understand where to turn to next or what else they need in order to have a healthy financial future. It definitely feels like it's a very proud moment.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. And lastly, I'm going to use a business term to work into your life here. So what's the plans in terms of scaling up ROI TV? I mean, obviously you've built a platform, you've got plenty of content on there now, but I know you're not going to let me, let out company secrets, but grand scheme, what do you see ROI TV looking like in the next, 5-10 years?
The grand scheme is just to get on more connected devices and into the bloodstream of more viewers, and meeting them where they are, whether that's on connected TV or on their phone, and giving them more content. I think we're really excited about the 12 shows that we currently have right now, but we know that there's even more financial questions like insurance and taxes, and crypto is such a hot topic right now, and financial planning to be answered that we want to help educate on. We want to be the place for personal finance answers. So that is our plan.
Awesome. Well, like I said, congratulations for pulling this off. I mean, it's pretty miraculous that you did it within a year. I mean, talk about moving fast and breaking stuff. Isn't that the old Silicon Valley thing?
Yeah.
I mean, but congratulations on that. And I wish you the best. Looking forward to see what's next with ROI TV. Her name is Hillary Mendes. She's the founder and CEO, and now has a year of experience in media. Now you're no longer the newbie, Hillary. You've been doing this for a year.
Yep. And still learning along the way, which is the great thing about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the time, Hillary. Good luck.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Joe.
You are very welcome. Find out more about Hillary's ROI TV at roitv.com. And that's it for this edition of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at forbesbooksradio.com.